Hello everyone and welcome to TED Talk. Today's topic is animal mistreatment. We have a big and good panel of people here to talk about it. But the purpose of our TED Talk today is to inform people about animal abuse and to find ways to stop the mistreatment in animal confinement, particularly in zoos. If you didn't know this already, a fun fact about elephants is that their lifespan is approximately 50 to 70 years in the wild, yet in the zoo it is 16 to 18 years. So our group today wanted to discuss ways on how to fix this problem, and these are just some pictures showing the differences between animals in the wild and animals in the zoo that you could tell. Like whales swim at least 100 miles per day in the wild, but in like aquariums, they're confined to the equivalent of a bathtub. But anyways, I've done enough talking. Right now we're going to have our first guest, Allie, come up and talk about the problem of animal mistreatment. Hi, Allie.
Hello, Emily. Lovely to be here.
Thanks for coming. You're here to talk about the main problem with animal mistreatment?
Yes.
Thank you. Let our viewers know what's going on.
Okay. Ever since zoos and aquariums have been around, we have been harming animals and making them conform to our desires. It is essentially impossible for zoos to be able to exactly replicate all the factors needed to keep hundreds of different animals happy and healthy. For example, polar bears are forced to live in hot conditions, nocturnal animals are forced to come out during the daytime so that they can be seen by the public. There's elephants in Maine, tropical birds in Minnesota, and so on. Animals need abundant areas for exercise, socialization, appropriate diets, and suitable climate conditions. In captivity, these animals are unable to run or roam or climb or hunt or fly, which is very traumatic because it restricts the natural instincts of these animals. These animals are forced to conform to the desires of humans, and they are being hurt in the process. What happens to wild animals after being kept in unnatural settings? Well, according to the National Humane Education Society, these animals develop stereotypies, which are forms of autism and mental retardation. Even though animals aren't treated fairly while in captivity in zoos, they are often treated even worse once they're forced to retire. If animals are costing more to care for than is worth it to the zoos, if they are too old to entertain the crowds of guests that visit the zoos every day, they're usually forced to retire. Animals who were once considered to be part of the zoo family are then sold to roadside zoos or research labs. These animals, who many times have had many years of service at a zoo, are oftentimes simply auctioned off to the highest bidder, no matter what their intentions are. Legally, the zoos are allowed to do this because animals don't have the same legal rights that humans have. Many animal rights advocates use the marginal human argument when discussing the rights that animals deserve. According to the Atlas Society's article, The Problem of Animal Rights, the marginal human argument is based off the observation that there are normal humans that we think of that have features and capacity like reasoning ability, normal emotional responses, and so on. Then there are the marginal humans who lack some of these capacities. These include infants, young children, the severely mentally retarded, etc. It goes on to come to the conclusion that many high-order animals fall into the same category as marginal humans. In Peter Singer's book, Animals and the Values of Life, he's quoted saying, "If we do not reject the belief that it is wrong to kill severely intellectually disabled humans for food, then we must reject the belief that it is all right to kill animals at the same level of mental development for the same purpose. Just because an animal isn't protected by law doesn't give us the moral right to hunt or capture animals. Theories and legislation are being proposed to create rights for these animals."
Next up, we have guest speaker Nicole Smart telling us about the causes of animal mistreatment.
Thank you.
Hi, Nicole. Take the stand.
Okay. Okay, so some information about the causes that I have. Zoos can't replicate the natural habitats with areas for exercise and socialization, appropriate diets, and appropriate climate for a large variety of animals. Animals are being put in zoos and aquariums for our desire. Animals will have behavioral issues being stuck in facilities for entertainment for so long. Lack of nature connection, and surplus animals are sometimes sold to roadside zoos or sold to labs for animal testing or just kills. In conclusion, I myself, after reading all these articles about animal mistreatment, I think that we should all stop going to zoos because animals are treated like very poorly there, and they get a lot of diseases from being in such a small enclosed area for so long. And I'm not going to go to a zoo again, probably.
So right?
Wow.
Nice
Thank
job,
you
Smart.
so much, Nicole, for telling us about the causes of animal mistreatment in zoos. So do you think that one of the main causes is that zoos are only focused on making a profit and don't really care about the well-being of the animals?
Actually, I do think that that's a big part of it, that they're just there for the money. They don't really care about the animals, because if they cared about them, they wouldn't have them in such like small areas.
I agree with you. Well, thank you so much for giving us your
You're
time.
welcome, Emily.
All right, thank you. Well, after hearing about the problem and the causes of animal mistreatment, I now have one more guest speaker, Jessica.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. She is going to be talking about the solution to this big problem that we have.
Very nice to be here. So, government regulations are in place in hopes of passing a law to take away the privilege that zoos are allowed to confine big sea animals. Secondly, wildlife sanctuaries are a good solution because they offer adequate room for bigger animals and even for bigger sea animals. The animals from the zoos can be transferred here instead of suffering at the zoos, which means that less animals would be in captivity and out in the wild. My third solution is to shut down SeaWorld. SeaWorld is basically like sea animals being in incarceration. They are huge animals confined in a very small place where they can't swim and grow as normal animals in the ocean. SeaWorld has been having terrible issues for the past 20 years, and pretty soon it will be enough to completely shut it down for good. The government is working on laws to pass to have all sea parks shut down. My fourth example is banning animal shows at theme parks. Animal shows at theme parks is just a repetitive lifestyle for animals that isn't healthy for their mentality. This only hurts the economy money-wise because there's so much more money to buy food and pay the trainers. And fifthly, we need to stop captive breeding. Captive breeding is a form of breeding when animals are forced to breed in captive places. It is unhealthy for them because it's not natural, and they should be in the wild breeding when they want to. And now I'd like to invite Emily Pedlow back up to the panel.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for telling us about the solutions to this big problem we have in our
You
world.
are so welcome. Lovely to be here.
Now I would like to invite our other speakers back up, Allie and Nicole. And we're going to
Welcome.
just have our
Hello.
final talk about animal mistreatment and our final thoughts about it. So do you ladies have anything else to say about this big problem that our world faces?
You can go.
Go for it.
Alright. Well, I just think that, like, it's really, like, messed up that, like, we live in a society where we force animals to, like, conform to our desires, and, like, we, like, intrude on their, like, natural, like, instincts and their natural, like, habits, and we, like, make them basically, like, incapable of being a wild animal.
To build off that, I agree, because we are capturing animals to do shows and to be in zoos, but like you don't see animals capturing us off the streets to do stuff like that. So you have to think about it the other way around, that they are still animals and they still have brains and they know what they're getting into. So
I agree with Allie, and I never really realized to the extent of how much like animals are really being like mistreated until we started this project, and it just makes you like realize that like that animals like live such a bad life unless they're like in like nature and the wild.
That is true, and I think that one of the big solutions that we can have, I think that Jessica touched on is wildlife sanctuaries, which are actually nonprofit organizations that take care of animals that zoos have discarded or animals that aren't really being taken care of well. And I think that if we support and donate to wildlife sanctuaries, that it will make animals happier, and that's a big solution to the problem.
So we're about to touch up on another topic. It's animal shelters like ARF and SPCA. So pounds and animal shelters are different in a way that pounds will kill animals that have been there for too long, but ARF and SPCA will keep the animals and find them homes no matter how long they've been there. So you can have a dog that's like 8 years old there, but at a pound they would never live past like 2 or 3. So that's another topic that is important.
And I would just like to point out how happy these animals look in all these pictures. These are all free and wild animals, especially the dog. What's the dog there? But they just are so much happier, and like I don't think that us as like a human civilization could survive without animals. I think they're a big part of our society and of our world, and I think that we need to do a better job of taking care of them.
Agree, and I also think that we should advocate for getting legislation passed, like the Animal Welfare Act, so that animals have are like better protected in their rights.
Very good point.
Thank you.
So I think that's all for today, but thank you for listening, and don't go to zoos.
Or aquariums.
Don't mistreat animals.
Or we'll come for you.
Animals don't have a voice, but we do.
Animal mistreatment is affecting people.
We have the power to change this.
Together, we can make a difference.